Well, welcome to this week's Training Tuesday, everyone. My name's Heidi Reese, and I'm here in Dayton Superior, Miamisburg, Ohio. And I'm the Training Programs Manager. And I just want to go over a couple of things before we get started. Everyone's muted that's joined, but don't let that stop you from asking any questions through the Zoom chat or question and answer functionality. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have a mini question and answer session for you. So we'll get those questions ready. You can get them into me and I'll ask for you. And Chuck can provide you fake answers or real answers, depending on his mood today. As a reminder, we record each of these webinars and we put them out on the Dayton Superior YouTube channel, as well as daytonsuperior.com website by the product type. So just to let everyone know, like normal, everything that we talk about in this presentation is intended for training purposes only. Anything to do with the specifications or the technical information regarding the products that we're going to speak of, please refer to daytonsuperior.com and get that information. There's technical data sheets, application, handbooks, you name it out there, and it will have all of the information that you need for it. So real quick before we get started, I want to let you know Dayton Superior. Most of you already know that we are the leading provider of engineered solutions. We do so for the concrete construction industry. We handle accessories, chemicals, forming, and we also handle engineering for you. So if you have engineering questions, there's various ways on daytonsuperior.com that you can ask those questions and get to an engineer. And of course, training. This is a Training Tuesday, so it's a bit of training, but if you want something more, if this is just too quick and you need it customized, please contact Chuck and myself at training@daytonsuperior.com. So I keep referring to Chuck, so guess what? He's the one presenting today, right? And he's going to talk to us about exterior bridge decks. It's a pretty cool thing, and I hope that all of you on here are going to enjoy it. A little bit about Chuck. He is our national training manager, and he has been in the construction industry for over 49 years. That's a long time, buddy. We need to have more drinks and find out more information about that so I can put this into my little spiel here. But getting back to it, 20 of those was as a dealer for accessories, forming, and chemicals, so basically everything. And 29 of those have been at Dayton Superior. He's worked in a lot of different roles, and right now, like I said, he's national training manager, and he is the go-to guy for what is what. So I'm going to have him talk to you about exterior bridge decks.
Okay, well, thank you, Heidi. And let's get started here. We're going to talk about exterior bridge deck forming. And primarily what we are going to be referring to as the exterior overhang is going to be the overhang brackets of the project. And the overhang brackets are what's going to form up your overhang for the bridge. Like I said, we are not rocket scientists in this business, believe me. So we have overhang brackets and they form up overhangs. So we'll keep it simple.
Simple's good.
Simple's good. So we will look at set of plans here and talk about how the information on that plans transfers out to the bracket. And then this being the 202 section, next week is 203, which actually puts last week's training class, which is the interiors, this week, the exteriors. It all will come together next week on how to do a takeoff for all three components. So typically, like we talked about before, every job has multiple pages. Don't get nervous about that. You only need a couple of them to actually do a bridged estimate. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes 3, maybe 4 pages tops. But typically, you're going to look at a typical deck section. This is a view, which is if you're standing at the edge of the deck, looking through it, and you're going to see the deck, the bridge deck from side to side. So you're basically, and you're going to see what beams, whether they're steel or concrete, doesn't really matter because they will all have the same detail section running through. And from this sheet here, you are going to gather a plethora of information. You're going to get pretty much everything you really need to calculate the bridge overhang bracket. And then on the other page that you're going to have, which is the framing plan, will give you the beam details. Now here, in the state of Ohio, we typically use concrete beams or steel beams, job dependent. And that's usually the design criteria for the engineer. Typically anything under 120 feet from pier to pier will go concrete, and typically anything over 120 feet long from pier to piers or abutment to pier will typically go steel. So with the framing plan, we're going to get the overall length of the bridge. Why is that important? Well, I like to know how many pieces I'm going to need. So we have the overhang bracket length off of here. And we're also going to get the girder details. Now, depending on how the girder is manufactured, whether it's a built-up girder or a extruded girder, there are a couple of different types. Usually, if it's a built-up girder, you're going to have plates that have been added to the top of the girder and to the bottom of the girder. Primarily, they're going to be put on in places like the tension zones. And that's where you're going to have where either one end of the beam is going into tension or into compression. So you'll also get on the deck section now, we're going to go back, we're going to start pulling the girder spacing. So we see what the spacing is center to center. This was important is if you paid attention, if you were on the class last week's class, we're talking about girder spacing. This spacing here is required to actually calculate the interior deck spacing. Not so much on the exterior, but it's always good to know what the spacing is on the girders, whether you're doing interiors or exteriors. The other thing you're going to see on this page is you will always find the deck thickness. The concrete thickness is extremely important because that's going to tell you how thick the deck is. What's the weight of the concrete going to be that your formwork has to support? You're going to have the beam thickness over the overhangs, over the beams. And what this is going to actually indicate is how much haunch you're going to have. Haunch is one of those terms that the bridge contractors use. It's the built up area from the top of the beam to the bottom of the concrete slab. And that area sometimes varies based on the camber of the girder. And those items are all, when you look out on the job site and you see the guy out there with the surveyors out there working, they're the ones actually setting the dimensions as to what the camber of the bridge is right now versus what it has to be. Now, we've all seen bridge beams shipped down the road as you're driving down the road. You notice that they're not totally flat. They sometimes have a little camber to them, a curvature. And what that curvature is there for is so that when you load the beam with concrete, it settles out. So you always want to make sure that that camber is in place here. But if you're the contractor on a job, you don't want to have to pour more concrete at the end of the bracket or beam to make up for the camber not coming out in the girder. So you want to make sure that that deck thickness remains the same throughout. So you're going to actually just change the haunch thickness based on location of the haunch, basically based on the position within the deck itself. So we have the bridge width. The bridge width obviously is from out to out. Now, when we say out to out, that's the end of the deck to the edge of the deck. Reason being, that's how wide the finishing machine is going to have to be. And the finishing machine is kind of the nemesis of the whole deck situation. The finishing machine is actually going to be probably 75% to 80% of the weight that the bracket will have to support, more so than the concrete. So the wider the beam bridge, the wider the finishing machine, which means the wider the machine, the more it weighs. So let's talk about the overhang brackets and the hangers. At Dayton, Heidi elaborated that we do engineering. And engineering, we basically help design a program that actually will come through and give you a detailed spacing and a setup of the brackets. And we will actually discuss this next week on how to read those drawings, how to read that spacing charts to actually make it work for you as far as spacing and takeoffs. So all this information that you see on here, we need to collect type of hanger preferred by the contractor. What's the contractor looking for spacing? Is he looking for 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot? I typically, my personal preferences, I don't recommend anything over 4 foot unless I have microgram lumber. Typical standard 2x lumber after 4 foot in spacing from center to center has a tendency to bow or deflect, and I don't want to get into too much with that. Now we can go into hangers here. The hangers we have, there are, if you're looking at our book, handbook, and I will tell you right now, first thing I'm going to tell you, make sure you get a copy of the Bridge Deck handbook. The Bridge Deck handbooks here has a plethora. I mean, I use that word plethora a lot.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, there is over 70 different types of hangers in the handbook, whether it's interior or exterior. Exterior hangers always have a 45-degree attachment plate. The 45-degree plate hooks onto a piece of coil rod, which will actually connect to the overhang bracket and hold it into position. Now, these hangers here are job dependent, contractor preference. Job site conditions will relate to what they can use. If you have a concrete beam, steel beam, etc. So depending on what you're looking at for the hanger to do, you know, we have a lot of hangers that we typically come through here like C60 type 1A, great hanger, but you can't run an overhang finishing machine on the outside of your overhang bracket with this hanger, because what happens is it puts this coil rod right here in shear. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a force pushing back this way, and it's going to actually make that coil rod right here go into shear. And most of our coil products are very good in tension. They're not very good in shear.
Now you're going to draw a flower.
Yeah.
Cool.
What has changed in a lot of construction practices across the country, the interior deck forming has gone away on a lot of cases. It's very selective where they use it, etc. So a lot of different states have gone with SIP decking, which is a corrugated metal decking, which goes in place. You pour your concrete on top of it, it stays in place. Another situation is a concrete plank. Some states do not like the corrugated metal decking, so they use a concrete plank. So they will actually put a slab of concrete, 3 inches of concrete, in between the beams. They will precast them, bring them to the job site, and just set it in there as a support. And this actually gets cast in and now becomes part of the structural deck. When that happens, with options that we have for hangers is cut way back. So we have typically our C24 half hangers. If it's a concrete beam, we have a precast hanger, C24 for APR, which can be modified to fit pretty much any of the ASHTO girders around, or we can have our C24 4AS hanger here, which typically is developed for weld-on situations. And here you can see a structure that's actually got that. This is a job that I did way back when in upstate New York. You also have, if you can't weld to the girder, you can use what we call a tie back hanger. And we got a couple of different varieties here. This does not require any welding. Works really well for a steel beam, but not for a concrete beam. Concrete beams, so like I said, would use a C24 4 APR or a precast hanger. The overhang brackets, typical C49, C49D. C49, both brackets have a 54-inch vertical walkway space. So this is going to be the part you're going to form the concrete up on. The vertical adjustment here can be adjusted with a C49 from 30 to 50 inches, a deep from 50 to 70, and then there is an S bracket, C49S. Don't get nervous, that's not another bracket. It is a C49 where you field modify it.
I'm glad you said something because my heart rate went through the roof on that.
Did it, and don't laugh, we've had people come up with it. The C49 changes here. We've got the only thing difference between the C49 and the deep is the vertical and the diagonal pipe. The outer pipe has actually been changed. Here you can see the outer pipe and the diagonal. And if you go to an S bracket, you're basically going to remove the inner pipe and replace the bolt that you pull out of the horizontal member and put it in the bottom of that pipe that goes into place there. So you can see where the pipe here now is attached all the way through, and you can now adjust your horizontal or your diagonal piece up and down from 14 inches to 28 inches. If you adjust it on a concrete girder, you always want to make sure you have a couple of inches of excess on the bottom where it runs wild there. Primarily for two reasons. The bracket is going to settle when you load it with concrete, so it's going to settle down maybe an inch or so. It's going to kind of compress down as everything tightens up. But you always want to make sure you have a little extra room there underneath. If it's a steel beam, you can actually block it out and pin it out. Easy enough to do. It's a quick and easy function. Diagonal leg must bear on the wood block there. You don't want to have the pipe bearing against the steel because that pipe will actually bend in that situation. We have overhang brackets here, the junior specialty bracket. It basically is just that. It is a half size C49, 27 inches on the vertical, on the horizontal, 16 to 28 inch on the vertical. Still has and maintains 3,750 pound load ratings, typically used where you don't have enough room to fit a regular bracket in place. We've got wall plate adapters, which will attach to each and every one of those overhang brackets on the C49 series. It's a two-piece system. Typically, you got a flat wall plate with a serrated washer that gives you about 1.5 inches of adjustment up and down. Typically, you're going to use a 3/4 inch bolt to either into an embedded anchor, or you're going to use a post installed style anchor. Guardrail receptacles and extensions for your overhang brackets to make walkways, and obviously to make walkways safer, so we can put up the safety guardrail in place, can be attached. So you don't have to make these out of wood. This actually guardrail post bolts to the overhang bracket. You drop a 2x4 in going for your vertical post, and then put your toe board and your safety rail boards up on attaching them, and you're ready to go. We've also got a C52P guardrail speed bracket. This is a pre-assembled piece that actually gets attached to the standard C49. It uses a 2x2 aluminum pole post, and if the post actually has pockets already attached to it for you to slide your rails in place. So you can use a 2x6 or 2x4. Now, guys, we also have our heavy duty brackets. 6,000 pound load rating, 4-inch pipe, 4-inch rails on the horizontal on the C89, 6-inch on the C89L. You got 72 inches and 90 inches long. The one big thing with this bracket is you have to use a 3/4 inch hanger. So it is a heavy duty hanger. Now you're limited by the number of hangers you can use and have available for this, but you do have enough. We can do a precast hanger, we can do a weld-on hanger, and we can also do a tie-back style hanger with this for the system, along with any of our Century hangers. We talked about the finishing machines. At Dayton, we don't make the finishing machine. We have to live with what the industry provides us. And currently, right now, there's 3 of them that I know of. I think there's 4, but I know of 3 myself. Bidwell makes a excellent finishing machine. So does Gamaco Corporation. A1 Engineering has made a finishing machine, and it really looks very impressive. And I've seen one from Multi-Equip too, I believe, out in the marketplace now. These guys are coming in. The finishing machine is actually the nemesis of the overhang bracket, because the overhang bracket is what this finishing machine sits on.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weights on those wheels when you're talking. So you're talking sometimes anywhere between 2,500 to, you can have anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 pounds per wheel. And when that happens, think about it, you've only got 3,750 pounds. If you have a wheel directly over the top of an overhang bracket, that means you've only got 750 pounds of actual weight that bracket can support. But this is a traveling system, so that the system itself, as one wheel comes off, the other wheel comes on. So we talked about engineering involved here. Here we have our bridge deck engineering sheet already put in place. This is right from our website. If you go to Bridge Deck Engineering Services, Bridge Deck, this information sheet will pop up. You can fill this in here. Our guys can run it and run the calculations for you as far as the spacing of the overhang brackets, etc., and give you the spacing and a lot of the dimensions here that you're seeing in this spacing chart here will relate to the overhang bracket, how to set it up prior to taking it out on the bridge deck to hang it. Because hanging a bracket is not the easiest job in the world. It actually requires quite a bit of effort from a couple of different employees at the same time working together. So as long as they don't have to make too many adjustments on it right off the get-go, they can usually get that job done relatively quick. Now we have options on how we run the spacings based off of lumber, dimensional space on hangers, brackets, etc. We take those all into consideration when we run our engineering calculations. And a lot of our calculations typically are accepted by the DOT as a forming plan. So a lot of contractors will pay the money here because if they don't pay it, they have to run the engineering calculations and provide drawings to the state on how to pour it. Now we can provide with the calculations for another little fee a drawing. And the drawing will fit that bridge, basically set up with the beams that are detailed in the structure, with the bracket detailed out so that it fits to the structure, and the spacing will all be noted. This way here, the contractor, once he gets the book from the dealer, he can turn it into the state. We can also provide this with a PE stamp if required. So we can basically provide all of the pertinent information that's required on how to form the bridge deck, the materials required, strengths of the material required, and the calculations showing that what we run the calculations on, the spacing would work. So this takes a lot of liability away from the contractor, all the way through and through. So with that being said, where do you find all this information? Well, go to your best first stop, www.daytonsuperior.com. Technical data sheets, handbooks, e-marketing, product pages. If you don't know who your salesman is, guess what? You can find that out on the page there. He's also got his cell phone number on there, so you can haunt him when you need to. You've also got customer service, technical, and engineering services available. So with that, you're going to see all of the design form calculations, where you get those on there. And one of the big things you're also going to get on, you're also going to have how to contact training at DaytonSuperior.com.
Careful, that means they can talk to us.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
We'll get them taken care of.
That's right. I was kidding y'all.
So, so feel free, if you've got a question, you have anything that you wish to have a question to ask or looking for an answer, feel free to give us a call. And remember, next week, we're going to talk about how to read the calculation sheets, how to do the takeoff, how to perform a quick estimate. And so if you're a contractor, you can also see how to space the overhang brackets. We actually have these charts available within our handbook and are available for you. And we're going to show you next week how to read them and use them. So with that being said, I'd like to say thank you. And if you've got a question, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, Chuck's right. We got a couple here. You can either ask the questions in chat or ask it through the Q&A. We've got a couple. The first one is, can you send me the PowerPoint presentation and the link? We don't actually send out our PowerPoints. However, I will always send you guys the link in the thank you for coming email. So Mr. Jorge, I will get that to you. Then we have another question from a sales rep point of view. Do you recommend that we send the contractors this sheet if they are requesting C49s?
If they are requesting C49s, yes, I would recommend sending them this sheet to actually run the calculations, because the brackets are only good. The brackets can only be used on a wall attachment with the C51 wall plate. Otherwise, the only other way to connect the overhang bracket is to use the hanger. And for that, you're going to need the calculations.
You got it. I'll be sure to send all of you guys an email, and it'll have a link to when it goes out onto our YouTube and our datesphere.com that you guys can replay. Actually, since you're asking, we've got all kinds out there. The one from last week that Chuck just mentioned, it's out there. We actually have a bridge deck page, and I'll send the link to that as well. Any other questions, guys? I have a question, Chuck.
Okay.
How you doing today?
Hey, it's been a great day.
Good. Me
Superior Day.
Superior Day. All right. Going once, going twice for more questions. I really appreciate all you guys hanging out. And like I said, I will send you an email that has all the information on where to get this presentation, as far as on the one that Chuck just did for you. And sign up for the next one. I just created the web page and promoted it while he was talking. Don't tell him. And so you could go out there right now and register. It is live. And with that, everybody have a fantastic Tuesday and see you next week.
Thank you, Heidi.